My name is Georgina Chinaka. I've got Caribbean heritage. So my dad's side's from Jamaica. My mum's side is from Guyana in South America. Even though it's in South America, it's classed as part of the Caribbean because of its history and you know the heritage there and so on. So my grandparents moved here as part of the Windrush generation. So like late 50s, early 60s, and moved with my parents when they were young children. And so, and then, so all my family are in London and so on. So I have a Caribbean heritage. But lots of people hear my surname and assume I'm Zimbabwean because I'm married to a Zimbabwean. So, but my maiden name is Stewart. I was born in the UK. I was born in London, but I moved up north in 2002. So I moved up here to study. So, like I said, I grew up in Southwest London and then moved up here to study at Durham University. And at the time, Durham University had a campus in Stockton called Queen's Campus. And I attended John Snow College. So it was like our halls and everything was in central Stockton. And that's how I got to be in Teesside. And I've basically been here ever since. Unfortunately, none of my grandparents are alive anymore. But growing up, I spent a lot of time with them. I lived with my maternal grandmother for a lot of my childhood. So that very much shaped me. Like I laugh a lot of the time, like obviously going to school and everything in London, it was like a very London experience. But when we came home, it was like everything was West Indian, everything was Caribbean, everything was, you know, was that experience. So that shaped my childhood, my growth. It's totally shaped who I am 100% today. What do I do for a living? So I have a really grand job title. So I am one of His Majesty's Inspectors for Education. So I was recently appointed by King Charles to be one of, I think there's probably about 2,000 of us in the country who go and check standards in schools. So I work for an organisation called Ofsted, and that's my job. So I go around schools in the region and I check the standards in that school. And yeah, so my job title is His Majesty's Inspector for Schools. And I've got a really cool document that's quite cool. Other people find it quite cool. It's okay. But you know, the document that says when I was appointed by King Charles to do what I do and all the rest of it. I was about to say it was a really long road, but actually, I think one of the things you asked me about, you know, if I know much about the Windrush generation and if that shaped who I am growing up. And it 100% did, because it made me, shaped me to be very determined and very go-getting. And my grandparents and parents are very, very focused on education. Like we had to do very, very well in education. And so that's something I always strive to do. As I said, I moved up here to study. And soon after I started working in education, started teaching. And I wasn't getting the career progression I would have liked or hoped. And I started to see certain gaps in how schools were possibly supporting or looking after our children. When I say our children, I mean children from like the Black community or non-white communities, and how they were, you know, succeeding in school and so on. So I started a supplementary school, which I ran for 6 years. And that was great. I learned a lot from that. And I was able to help a lot of parents and children through running that school. So I did that alongside teaching. I was working at university as well, doing some research. Um, and it feels like a lot of years and a lot of experience gained in working across primary and secondary and higher education, as well as running the school myself and, you know, running my own business and so on, that culminated to me getting to develop this expertise in areas. Stopped teaching probably about 6 years ago and was given a role in the local authority to be like a school advisor. So I'd work with schools in improving standards, particularly around ethnic minority achievement and students who have English as additional language, making sure schools are meeting their needs appropriately and they are able to succeed as they can. And that was an enjoyable role challenging at times, but really enjoyable. Again, it developed me as a person, but I feel like I was able to challenge schools a lot and change a lot of things there as well. And then this new role, the HMI Ofsted, His Majesty's Inspector Ofsted role, I've only been in 6 months or so, so it's still very brand new. But it's an interesting one because every time I tell people I'm a HMI, they're a bit like, oh, a bit surprised, because typically His Majesty's inspectors don't look like me. They're a lot older than me, a lot paler than me. And they just, you know, when we have our regional get-togethers and everyone, I'm the only black person. I'm the only black HMI in the region. I don't know if I am the first one. I don't know if there have been others before me or not. I don't know. But I'm the only one at the moment. So I'm the only black one, I'm the only black woman. And I would say I'm one of the youngest. And so for me, I'm just doing what I do. Like I say, I've always strived to, I guess, do what I know I can do and not let what other people feel I should be doing or what boxes they want to put me in stop me. Was raised that way to always push against boundaries and ceilings and stuff, right? So for me, it feels like quite a comfortable and natural step to kind of push those boundaries. But I do know that to some people looking at it from the outside, they're probably just saying, how does she get there? Like, how does she do that? But yeah, always, I say to people all the time, I say to my children all the time, I've got 4 children. I was never ever like, even in school and studies or anything, I was never ever like, you know, there's those people who like win awards for stuff and they're always like picked out because like they're the best at that, or like they're always the ones being like acknowledged for stuff at school. They won't win the awards, or at university they get the highest grades, or at jobs they're the ones picked for promotion. I was never that person. Never, never, ever have been that person. I've always had to work really hard. And also be really, I don't want to say resilient because that's not necessarily the right word, but determined in a sense that to not let those challenges dissuade me from where I need to be or what I think my calling is. I have had a few challenges along the way, more than a few, loads, in every single bit that I described to you in terms of schooling, university, work, and all the rest of it. I've had situations where people have challenged my authority because they didn't like that I was the one in charge or didn't think that I should be the one in charge. That's okay. That's their problem. That's not mine. I've had, I think, because of who I am, a young black woman. I still call myself young. I know people are going to start disagreeing with me about that at some point, but as a young black woman, that they don't feel like I should be the one telling particular things, particularly if I'm standing up for like our community, for the young black community, if I'm, you know, challenging people on assumptions or stereotypes that they're holding or things that are inhibiting young people because of some of the systems in place, it can be challenging and it can be hard. I think I found one of the things I found most useful is finding my people, finding my network in terms. Um, and that can sometimes be a really lonely space. It can sometimes be really alienating, particularly if you're trying to challenge things or you're being challenged or undermined in some way, and you think it's because you're a black woman that you're being undermined. So finding those key people around you that can hold you up and support you through that professionally, even if they're not exactly in that space, has been really important for me and been really helpful when I'm facing those challenges. So I have some amazing black women around me who are of a similar age, similar, you know, family responsibility, similar, you know, career ambitions, similar faith, all of that, that we really encourage each other, you know, and yeah, we hold each other to account when we need back. actually we really stand with each other and really encourage each other and really remind each other who we are and what we're called to do in the spaces that we are, and help us to stand firm. And that's been really helpful and important. But I know, yeah, there have been challenges in my career, and there will continue to be. I'm sure there will be. And I think we would be silly to not expect those. It's never going to be plain sailing, I don't think. Nothing in my career has been plain sailing. When I tell people, like I say to you now, the job that I have now, and people say to me, "Oh, you're quite young to be in that role," or whatever, or this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't easy. It's a lot of hard work. I think sometimes we look at some people's where they are in their lives at the moment, and we think, "Oh, they just must have just walked to that. They must have just been those people that always had, the luxury of always being at the top or whatever." Exactly. And often when you sit down and speak to people, you realize actually they fought really hard, and are continuing to fight really hard actually to carve out that space. But yeah, I think it's about not only just carving out that space for ourselves, but when we carve it out, that we're kind of bringing others along with us. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't always want to be the only Black woman in the room, in the boardroom or whatever situation it is. I want people alongside me. I don't want it to be a lonely experience. It doesn't make any sense. But also one of the things that, and it's interesting because growing older is one of those things that, but if you're lucky and blessed enough to, you'll grow in confidence. So, I love that now when I'm out doing my spectrum work and I'm in schools, I love seeing younger Black girls look at me and be like, oh, like, oh, she's the one that the whole school have been running around trying to get some sword for. And I don't mean that in an ego way, but I know for a lot of the young people, actually for all the young people, they probably wouldn't have seen someone who looks like me come in to do that job, let alone someone who looks at me. I go to work with my hair in 6 kmos because it's the easiest way. I might be on an inspection for 2 days and I'm normally away. So I don't want to have to be fussing with my hair in the morning. It's a really busy couple of days. So I've got, my hair in my braids set, my natural hair, and all of those kind of things. And for them to be able to look at me and recognize and see themselves in that, I think is really important. My faith is a massive, massive thing for me. I think without my faith, I don't know any which way I would have been able to overcome any challenges. So I'm a Christian. That's extremely important to me. That keeps me very, very grounded. But I know I'm called to do certain things in certain places, and so that keeps me very set on my path. Also stops me from getting distracted or dissuaded by other voices that might try to tell me otherwise. Blessed enough to have an amazing family. So, husband and 4 children, which, they definitely keep you in check. But my upbringing has been absolutely instrumental in everything that I do. And I think I talk about it more and more and more the older that I get, or maybe it's that I'm raising children of my own now and all the rest of it. But I see those things that my parents did, my grandparents did, my aunts, my uncles, all of the effort and time and real intentionality that went into blocking out all of that outside noise from outside, be it like friends or school or whatever, to make us really firm and secure in who we are, really confident in who we are, a real strong sense of self-belief and a real determination to be the best that we can be. And I know it sounds really cheesy, but I know that without all of that, a lot of the things that I do or maybe take for granted nowadays just wouldn't be the case. Yeah. Do you know what? I don't think anyone's ever asked me that before. And I don't know what I would deem to, it sounds silly to say, right? Because I told you a lot of things about my life, and I think if you ask someone else that question about me, they'll probably be like, oh yeah, and they'll say, you know, this, that, and the other, and reel off some stuff. Don't know why I'm finding it hard to do, but I don't necessarily think of much things I've done professionally as a particular success. I feel that I'm called to be into those spaces and do what I need to do in those. And I don't feel like, I don't know, my journey's yet done either. But there are some things I'm proud of. I think if it was anything to do about success stories, it's my personal life, you know, having the family that I have, you know, the children that I have, having a loving home, all the rest of it, that for me is really the success. If you ask other people that question about me, they'll probably tell you some different things. But there are some things I'm proud of. I'm proud of the supplementary school I ran for a while. I'm proud of the impact that had. I'm proud of the person that I am professionally. And by that, I don't necessarily mean the job titles I've held or the positions that I have. I mean the way in which I am when I am in those roles. I think I've managed to find a way to authentically be me in those positions, and not allow those positions to change me or those organizations to change me. And that's not always easy to do. So I would say that's a success. Listen to those who have come before you. And I mean that in a way in which that has been a real guiding force for me. Listen to those who have come before you, learn from them. Often they have trodden a similar path, sometimes a much more difficult path than you have had to. And you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. You can learn from them. So we can sometimes feel like we know it all. There's a time you spoke to me like 20 years ago, would tell you like, oh, I'm going to do it this way, and I know it all and all the rest of it. There's real wisdom in listening to those who have come before you. There's real wisdom in learning from the journey that they have been on. And be humble enough to do that, right? We often get confused with thinking that determination and confidence has to mean doing stuff alone or not listening to others or pretending we know it all or being arrogant. It's not. Like, you can do everything that you're called to do and be humble and gracious while doing it, right? Again, I would say definitely, I mean, for me, I would say know God. I think without that, you'll always be searching and trying really hard to work out an identity that you won't quite be able to get a handle on. Know God and know yourself. So whatever that looks like for you, like I spoke at the very beginning about my heritage being really important to me. It was super important to me because I was growing up in London, but not where my parents and grandparents were born. It's not where, you know, they were really trying their best to instill a real sense of identity in us, and a real sense of self-worth. And they did an amazing job at doing that. And I just think really knowing who you are, knowing and being proud of the heritage that courses through you, is something that we should 100% all do. So definitely say know yourself, know God, and listen to those that have gone before you. Take their advice, learn from their lessons.